evening. Thank you very much for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now. I am Heena Gambhir. At 8 p.m., our focus are nearly 16 lakh students standing at a point in life which can be called the takeoff stage or launch pad. For the next few months, they and their parents will live a life full of dreams coexisting with nightmares. So let's take you to the world of anxious, inhabited by students of class 12th and their parents tonight. In these almost 2 million homes, the aim is to get a berth in one of the undergraduate courses in 45 odd central universities. The daily conversation was and will be dominated by these templates. What next? Which college? What if? Best of the best universities and colleges maintain their premium value through Everest high cutoffs. Means score 100% and you're in. 95% is just not good enough. It's true about colleges, institutions like the University of Delhi. But wait. Now, a new system is coming. The University Grants Commission, or the UGC, is prescribing the new admission formula as anxiety buster. The UGC, or the University Grants Commission, is ushering in a new entrance test for undergraduate courses for central universities called as the Common University Entrance Test, or CUET. Now, this is going to involve admissions to central universities undergraduate courses via a mandatory common entrance test, not just class 12th marks. The entrance test will take place in the first week of July. The application process will be online and will begin in the first week of April. The entrance test will be conducted by the National Testing Agency, and anyone who clears class 12 exams is eligible to make the common entrance test. Government says admission on the basis of sky-high cutoff marks will now be history. A student's board marks will have not much role in determining his or her admission to a college or a program. It will be based only on the CUET score. Will this new system provide a remedy? Will this new system ensure level playing field going forward? Or will this be additional burden on students who would have slogged through the last few years to score well in their board exams? Let's find out. Earlier, I spoke to Chairman of the University Grants Commission, Mr. M. Jagadesh Kumar, on this radical reform in the higher education. Here's what he said.
Well, you said it's a radical reform. I would say it is a very student-friendly reform, and it is part of the National Education Policy 2020, which is suggested to have one national entrance examination across the country for admissions in the undergraduate programs. So this year, UGC has decided to conduct the Common University Entrance Test for admission in UG programs in all the 45 central universities, and this examination will be held in first week of July, and the actual application process will start in 1st April on National Testing Agency website.
Okay, could you tell us a little bit more about this particular, common entrance test? Is it only going to be for central universities, or is it also going to cover private universities in the country? What is the plan really?
Well, CUET scores can be used by any university in the country. But however, for the coming session in 2022-23, for these admissions, we have made it compulsory in all central universities. And today we have issued a public notice which clearly says that whether you are a state university, private university, or deemed to be university, anyone can use the CUET score.
Okay. So also now this is something which is going to impact students across the country. I call it a radical reform in the higher education space. You said that it is a student-friendly education reform. I want to understand from you the rationale behind it, and what would the scores then of class 12th really mean for any student who is looking to get admission into a central university in the country?
We need to look at how the admissions in UG programs are done across the country. Some universities use the 12th standard marks, and many universities conduct their own entrance tests. As a result, what is happening is the students are forced to write multiple entrance examinations across the country. And when you use the 12th standard marks as a basis for admissions, we also know that there is a lot of diversity in the marks awarded by various boards across the country. So the rationale behind introducing this CUET is to provide a level playing ground for the students so that the diversity that is seen in the plus 2 marks will not affect the admission process. And also the students need not have to go to different universities to write multiple entrance examinations. So basically it is to provide a level playing ground to the students. But in addition to that, the CUET will also be conducted in 13 languages, 1 English and 12 Indian languages. And the advantage of this is, even if the students who are coming from a rural background, who have studied in their own local languages, can easily attempt the CUET. And some people are saying that, is this the end of the board marks? Does it mean that students will neglect their board examinations? Certainly not, because while the admission is based on CUET score, the individual universities can still set a particular percentage in the 12th standard to be eligible to apply to the admissions in a given university. So just as in IIT admissions, we have certain percentage that we say that you must acquire in your plus 2 in order to get admission in IIT using your JEE score. So therefore, both can be done. And I strongly believe that with this, students will focus more on being better learners rather than just work towards getting 98 and 99%, which ultimately leads to all kinds of stress in the minds of the people. So from any angle, I see this reform as a highly student-friendly approach.
Could you just elaborate a little bit more on what you said just now? So you're trying to tell us that the eligibility criteria for every university that comes under center can actually be different. So it'll be the discretion of the university to have its own set of eligibility criteria. For example, if it wants to consider the marks of class 12th board, it can. So it will not just be on the basis of this common entrance test that one will be able to secure admission into a particular university or a particular college. The class 12 board marks will be important too.
That is true. You see, every university is an autonomous organization, and they have their own admission policies. They decide what should be the threshold marks in the plus 2 for admission in their UG programs. So therefore, the existing admission policies of the universities will not be affected by being part of the CUET. All that we are saying is that let the students across the country write the CUET and apply to the universities with their CUET score. The final selection will be based on the CUET score ranking. But however, the individual university can set certain threshold marks in the plus 2 in order for them to be eligible to apply. So therefore, the students have to focus both on their 11th standard and 12th standard, and they also have to do well in the CUET. Because we do not want to affect the autonomy of the individual institutions, because they have their own admission policies. For example, right. No, for example, in some of the universities, they have
Yes, sir, go
reservations
ahead.
for the local students, or in some universities, they have reservations for the minority students. So we are saying that the existing reservation policies will continue to be there. The existing admission policies of the universities will continue to be there. However, the final selection of the students will be based solely on the CUET score. But there are some areas such as fine arts, music, dance, theater. So there the individual universities can conduct a practical examination or a viva and use certain percentage of marks for the interview and the practical examination, and the remaining marks, maybe 70% or so, will come from the CUET scores. But this exception is only for few areas such as fine arts and theater, dance and music.
I was trying to understand, sir, will this have any impact on the reservation that
Please
we
repeat
see,
your
the
last
reservation
question.
policies in various universities?
No, the reservation policies will not be affected at all. The constitutional reservation policies will continue to be there. Over and above that, if any university has a reservation for the local students or minority students, those reservations also will be there. All that we are saying is that even if certain seats are reserved for the students coming from the schools of a university, for example, Vishwa Bharati has 2 schools, and the students who pass out in +2, they can directly get admission in Vishwa Bharati UG program. So Vishwa Bharati can, for example, conduct CUET for these internal students also and admit them based on the CUET score. So to give a clear answer to your question, the existing reservation policies, the existing admission policies of the universities will not be affected, except that the final selection of the student should be based on only the CUET score.
So that was UGC chairman there speaking exclusively to Mirror Now, explaining to us the new entrance test that's going to be in place, and he has called it a student-friendly regime that's going to kick in as far as higher education in India is concerned. However, some students have said that this is going to be additional burden. So let's ask our guests, what does this really mean, and will this actually provide level playing field for all students? Joining us today is Professor PC Joshi, former VC DU. We have Tanveer Ejaz, academician, joining us. Advocate Shikha Bagga, Director Forum for Indian Parents, also live with us. Anoushka Khemani, Class 12 student, is live with us. Birla Vidya Niketan School from Saket in Delhi. Nemal Rizvi, who's a Class 12 student from Girls High School and College from Prayagraj, joining us live this evening as well. Good evening to all of you. Thank you for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now. First, let me go across to the students that we have on the show tonight. Anoushka, let me begin the discussion with you. What do you think about this new common entrance test that's going to be there? Do you think it will be good for students or it will be additional burden?
I personally think that this initiative introduced by the government of making entrance exam compulsory for the students, it's a good decision because then it will provide equal opportunity for all the students to apply. Earlier, only the students who scored above 96, 97% in boards could compete for the top universities. But now students who haven't done so well in boards can also apply. So it gives a fair chance and an equal opportunity for everyone. Also, I don't think it will be a burden.
So you feel that this is a right step?
Yeah.
Okay, you don't think it will be a burden. Let's go across to Nemal Rizvi as well. Nemal, where do you stand on this particular issue? Do you think it's going to help students or it's going to be additional burden for students like you?
It will be an additional burden because class 10th and 12th mark sheets are kept everywhere on the top. And class 12 will be considered after CUET also. So definitely it will be an extra burden for us. And we are apolitical.
Okay,
and we are
so you believe that... Okay, so you believe that since the importance of class 12 marks will be there, so this is going to be additional burden for students. Interesting views we've got here. And Professor PC Joshi, what is your opinion on this particular move? Because we just heard what the chairman of UGC had to say, who said that, you know, it is a very student-friendly move, and there are going to be ways to help the students. It will provide a level playing field. How do you see this decision?
I was a member of the UGC committee. Last year it was formed, and I was one of the members of that committee which decided about this particular scheme of examinations. Now, we should not be looking at it in isolation. It has to be seen with other provisions of National Education Policy 2020. For example, we have got lateral entry, lateral exit. Now, and another, we have got ABC, Academic Bank of Credit. Now, so what we are doing, we are going to internationalize our education system in India. And the whole India is going to be now one unit. And students have freedom to move across the universities. You know, earlier it used to be watertight compartments. Universities were watertight compartments. So CUSET or CUET, it is called now, will be one step in that direction. Definitely, it is going to be very, very friendly. I tell you one thing, you know, we have got so many state boards in India, and all state boards are not, you know, at par with each other. Every year in Delhi University, we would see that some state boards are very liberal, while some other boards are very conservative. For example, if you look at the UP board, it is a very, very conservative board. So the student in certain boards, we were finding they were at disadvantage as far as the central universities are concerned. Now, a common examination across India is going to solve this problem. And we are going to have a fair level playing field, like one of the students are saying, for the students to compete. And I think this is a great move that is coming up.
Okay, but you know, already because of COVID, Professor Joshi, we are seeing that board exams for class 12 students are happening in two parts. Usually by March, the stress, the anxiety would get over, and you know, students would start preparing for the courses that they want to get in as far as their undergraduation is concerned. But now, after March also, the anxious period for the students and the parents is still going to continue. So how is it going to reduce the burden on students?
No, you know, like we have to see it in long term, you know. We should not see, you know, we are just coming over this COVID. But we have to see it in long term, you know, we have to see it in long term. And in long term, as I said, this is going to be a very good, I think, facility for the students to take admission into the universities of their choice based on their qualification. As Professor Jagadesh Kumar has already said, that it is not going to affect the reservation. So all those affirmative action schemes are going to continue. And I think it is truly student friendly, you know, like maybe, you know, students are sometimes worried about anything that is new, but in long run, it is going to be student friendly. It's going to be helpful for students. The whole India is going to become one unit. And also, I think students are going to get facilities to study abroad as well. Now, we are having this 4-year undergraduate program that is coming up, which is, again, a very, very revolutionary idea. We're going to have 1 year of masters. We are going to have research as a very important component of education. So all these are very exciting possibilities. And I think CUET has to be seen in context of all these revolutionary provisions that are being made under National Education Policy 2020.
Okay, Tanveer Ejaz, what is your view on this new common entrance test for class 12 students, another layer? Because what if a student does really well in class 12 but fails to make the cut in the entrance test? Won't it then be disastrous for that particular student?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now the whole it rests on the way how they do their CUET exam. And now CUET exam is, we don't know exactly that what is the content of this exam. How, students who have done science would then, if they want to do commerce, or for that matter, if they want to do arts, political science, for instance, what kind of exam it would be. So that's not clear on the one hand. But what is more disturbing right now is the fact that, for getting good marks in CUET, you will have to rely on some coaching institutes. You'll have to go to coaching institutes. So the market enters into, in a very big way, into the university, right? And not just that, because 1 mark counts in admission in Delhi, for instance, in Delhi University, it's 1 mark that counts, So imagine the kind of pressure that would be there for the students, that even if they have done well in 11th and 12th standard, they are just, on the vagaries of this exam. This exam will have lots of vagaries, just like, any other exam has, any other competitive exams have, so they would be resting on this kind of a vagaries of, and market comes very strongly into this educational field. And of course, as in a public university, cannot have the values propagated in the market. Market runs for private profit maximization. Therefore, they would do all kinds of things, and what is this National Testing Agency? Now, this agency also, we do not know, if SAT paper, in the US, that can be leaked in China, in 2017, the exam which was taken in China, the SAT exam, was recycled in US in 2018. So just imagine the vagaries of this exam. I'm just worried about the market and the vagaries of this exam, and making the whole 11th and 12th
we also have
redundant.
JEE. We also have JEE for engineering students who want to get into IITs. So if we have a similar sort of a system for getting admission into central universities across the country, don't you think it will actually be, a level playing field for all the students? So for example, somebody who's completed his or her 12th, from Uttar Pradesh, from Telangana, from Kerala, will have the opportunity to get into a central university only via this particular entrance test. So if JEE can be successful, why can't we have a common entrance test for undergraduate courses and the admission in colleges?
JEE, for that matter, any exam which has a high dependence on the market coaching institutes, we do not have data. You're saying it's successful. I'm not saying that as a successful model. If that would have been a successful model, just imagine the kind of inequity which is there in education system. Why, after all, there is such a huge inequity? We do not have accessibility. India right now is actually looking towards more accessibility to the education system, more accessibility to the educational institution. There is huge inequality, there's huge inequity. So the question of accessibility and equity is the major problem. And this basically is being done by the market laden coaching institutes, which supports only the rich class people. So to make those who are better off further better off, and those who are worse off further worse off, what kind of a system are we entering into? So it's a knee-jerk reaction. Any problem, let's have an exam. So I think we'll have to think aloud and think out of the box. We just can't copy SAT, for example. SAT in US has evolved over a period of time, has moved from one direction to completely other direction, where they want all kinds of representation and all kinds of equities there. But we do not have. Just look at the data. Some of the data is mind-boggling, in education.
Okay, Professor PC Joshi, will you like to address some of the concerns that Tanveer Ejaz has raised? Then I'll go across to Advocate Shikha Sharma.
Yes, I think I would like to address, first of all, our learned friend had said about what subjects the students are going to opt, and they do change sometimes from science, they go to arts. But I think in CUET, they will be having their own subjects, and CUET will provide them one score, that score then can be used, can be used in any university, like Professor Jagadesh Kumar said, that it can be used even in the private universities they want. This is a kind of an objective, I would say, score that the student can carry, and maybe, universities might like to use it. Now, about the National Testing Agency, I would just like to say, I think it's one of the very, very prestigious, at least two institutions that are held in very high esteem. One is National Testing Agency, another is Union Public Service Commission. I think these are the two great institutions that we have. They are time-tested institutions. They are very objective institutions. I've never heard anything about them. I'm not talking of other institutions, but these two institutions are taking responsibilities. You see, earlier what was happening? JNU would have their own test, and BHU would have their own test, and the student would have to appear in multiple tests in different across India, and you spend a lot of money. I think now we are going to check that, and they're going to one exam all over India. I'm on record last year saying that we should have best system would be that there should be some weightage given to the 12 exams as well. And in fact, I was of the opinion that 50% weightage should be given to CUET and 50% to the 12 examination. Because this is really, I think, a very important point has been raised by our learned friend. It's about encouraging the coaching institutes, and that should be there should be that should be our concern, and that concern can be addressed if we are also going to give weightage to the 12th exam, so that they also become meaningful for the students. So this is what I would like to say.
So we are getting to know that some weightage clearly will be given to the exam, the marks that a student gets in class 12th board exams. That was the clarification, in fact, that has come from the chairman as well. Advocate Shikha Sharma, now the sense that we are getting, from what Professor PC Joshi has told us just now, that instead of having multiple tests to get admission into a college that comes under a central university in the country, there will be one single test. Do you think it's a good move, or do you think it's additional burden on the students and on their parents?
I disagree with the statement that it is going to be a student friendly, because already we as a parent, or we as a teachers, we as an academician, we as a school authorities, we have created a huge burden on students, created a huge pressure on the student. We are judging them only on the basis of marks rather than on their innovative skills. Our whole education system right now, which we are practicing here, is, first of all, it is not uniform throughout the country. So what is the question that how can we make it a uniform in the universities? Even in the one state, if one CBSE curriculum, if they say many schools are not using the NCERT books, they are using different books of their own choice, and there's no control of the government over that. So and another thing I wanted to question is that I don't know what formula the UGC have devised to check that, to assess a student on the basis of a 3-hour exam. There are various factors on which a student fare well or not fare well in an exam. On the basis of this 3 hours, you are going to judge a student that either he is eligible to have this course or apply for this course or not. Which is, I disagree with this point. I believe that this is totally unfair. Marks cannot judge any student, because we have seen that, various examples that many students, even the case of Einstein, who has failed in maths, and he had, we all know that what is his status and what is the contribution in the field of science. So how we are judging the student on the basis of marks is one of my concerns. Further, it is going to add a huge burden, huge pressure on the student. As first, we have to ask our student that to concentrate on board exams. Once they are over with the board exam, then again they have to rush for their competitive examination. And moreover, we have the
So you believe that this is going to add more burden on students. Okay, interesting point there, and we'll get Professor Joshi to respond to the point that you have raised about how can the university assess a student on the basis of a 3-hour long exam. We'll get him to address that, but before that, let's also hear what the people have to say about this decision of UGC. We have Ajit Kumar joining us from Bihar this evening. Ajit Kumar, thank you for calling us here on Mirror Now. What is it that you will like to say? Okay, I think we've lost that line. We'll try and reconnect. We have Dr. RK Arya joining us from the National Capital as well. Dr. Arya, thank you for calling us here on Mirror Now. What is it that you will like to say?
Good evening, madam. In fact, I am a student from Delhi University all through. What I have seen over the years, I am not talking alone about Delhi University. In other university, you will see after market reforms of 1991, that is the period of liberalization, you will find that most of the state universities have lost their standard. They are not at par with the Delhi University or so to say any central university. So state university, once they don't compare with the central universities, and then the state universities differ. They are situated in jurisdiction where they have got their different class, that is school boards. And these school boards have got a different type of marking system and different type of examination system. Say, for example, the essay type questions are more prominent there in the state education boards as compared to CBSE board, which is called central board. Now the children from all these states are flocking. Basically, these colleges in Delhi. That is because of the low standard there in their own states. So when CBSE people have got an edge over the state board student, if the state board student has got 80% marks and their cutoff, in Delhi, it goes up to 98%, and definitely the student has passed out from CBSE board. So you cannot equate the state board student with the central board student. So therefore,
but then won't it be better, Dr. Arya, to have a common entrance test, for these students as well? Then won't it actually give them a level playing field, and only the marks will not be important, will not be sufficient for someone to get admission into, say, a prestigious college under DU?
You can assess his or her knowledge when he or she will appear in the test. But in terms of showing the mark sheet and getting the admission, so definitely he will be losing out the race. But when you will ask him to sit in the test, it will be his courage to prove it, that he can take admission in the central colleges. What is the harm in it? So you are giving the level playing field and dismissing what anyone has done from a course from anywhere. So in IAS examination, you will see that the mathematics student gets 80%.
All right, Dr. RK Arya, that's an interesting point you have raised. Yes, Dr. Arya, thank you for calling us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening. We have Professor Raju joining us from Bengaluru as well. Professor Raju, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Urban Debate. What is it that you will like to say?
Hello, am I audible, madam?
Yes. Could you just put your television on mute?
Okay. Hello.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes.
I am Professor Danikemperaj speaking from Bangalore. My point is that I fully endorse the observation made by Chairman UGC and also Professor Joshi sir. Really, it is one of the radical step in the context of new education policy 2020. My point is here, because of some kind of the changes happening in the boards, both in the central boards as well as in the state boards, etc., to provide a good opportunity in a level playing situation, the initiative taken by the UGC is highly appreciable. That is point number one. And also, we are seeing that many of the good colleges, particularly in Mumbai or in Delhi, etc., in the beginning itself, they used to declare that the students who are having 95+% only, they are eligible to apply. cutoff this thing has been announced very much in advance. So I think it is very essential that to give one more opportunities for the students to take this kind of an additional examination. My only suggestion is that the examination between the plus two as well as the entrance examination should not be with a wide gap. So that the students who are preparing for plus two, after a gap of nearly 1 week or 10 days, if we conduct this the common entrance test, that will not become a big burden for them. That is one suggestion I want to make. Secondly,
interesting, very interesting suggestion. You have, yes. That's a very interesting suggestion you've given to us. Thank you very much for calling us here on Mirror Now on Urban Debate this evening. Let's take one more viewer as well, then I'll go back to the guest. Mahesh Babu is joining us from Bengaluru as well. Good evening. Thank you for calling us here on Mirror Now. What is it that you will like to say?
Heena, I'm listening to the discussions going on. And my worry is, see, there are different standards being met with different classes of people all around India. There is no similar standard as such. And in such scenario, how can the students compete each other unless level field, you know? The ground level is not common. When you don't have a similarity, how can the people score in a similar fashion? So there has to be some provision for the people from different areas, like suburban, urban, or the rural students. There are so many students who are coming in. How do you match them? I don't know. I think the experts can check it out and make provisions for these people. So every student has a level playing field. You know,
all right. All right. Mahesh Babu, appreciate you joining us here on Mirror Now this evening. Professor Joshi, you heard what the people have to say. Some clearly have welcomed this particular decision, but some have made some important points as well. For example, we all know that there is a difference between the education under CBSE board and various other state boards that we have in the country. The way marks are given, when exams happen. So in a situation like that, how will you ensure that, the common entrance test that happens is, in a way, a level playing field for everyone?
Precisely because there is a wide gap, wide variation across the various state boards, that we need some common yardstick. And common entrance test is that yardstick which will judge a student across, irrespective of what kind of board they have. We must also understand that this common entrance test is not only going to test their ability in the subject specific, but also general knowledge, mathematical abilities, and all those kind of aspects or domains which make the complete personality of a student. So this is going to be a very, very different kind of experiment, if I may say, where number one, students will not have to spend a lot of money that earlier they were spending going across different universities. One test can be used across all 45 universities. And of course, even the private universities, if it is a good test, even the private universities and the state universities are going to, I think, gladly accept it. So it is going to be a kind of a truly national score that a student is going to have. And I think that in that sense, I would say that it's a very, very innovative, it's a very, very revolutionary, it's a very, very dynamic new idea that we are going to come up in higher education in India.
Okay. Tanveer Ejaz, now, another important point that one of our viewers had raised, that this, in a way, is also giving students another opportunity. For example, if someone doesn't manage to get, say, 99% or 100% marks in class 12th in a particular subject, and we all know the condition of cutoffs really in various colleges of Delhi University that most students in the country aspire to get into, then this test is going to provide them with one another opportunity to maybe get into their dream college.
Yeah, so as I told you before, that we are not very sure what would be the minimum eligibility of the marks from the school, right? We're not very sure. Earlier, we were listening that school marks would be redundant. It would not matter. But now I'm hearing Professor Joshi and from the chairman also UGC saying that there would be some marks given weightage from the school level, right? So let's assume that we take 50% marks from the school level, right? And then the other, the other marks one should get it from the entrance test. We all know that admission in colleges in Delhi University, for instance, and I'm sure that it must be same everywhere also, that even 1 or 2 marks count, right? If you are not, if you are missing 1 mark or 2 marks, your admission will not be there. So it's a very, very tough time. Now, I'm not very sure about how the cutoff would be low, right? The cutoff, it anyways would be high for universities which are sought after universities, right? It is only that the portion of the marks which one gets from the entrance test, and that entrance test one can have it by a sort of, look at the content of the test. It would be something like banking exam, reasoning, etc. That is very scary for the students who have no, interest in, let's say, numbers, mathematics, statistics, or for that matter, who have no interest in reasoning, the kind of reasoning which is asked in the banking exams, have no interest. Somebody who wants to do literature, for example, why should that person should take an exam which would ask them, questions on banking kind of stuff or
Let's get Professor Joshi to quickly respond to that. Then I'll go across to my other guests as well. Okay, Tanveer Ejaz has made a very important point, Professor Joshi, and adding to what he said, now CUET will essentially have 3 parts. That's the information that we have. The first part will test a candidate on the language of his or her choice. This will have reading comprehension, questions on vocabulary, synonyms, etc., besides other things. Now, there will be a choice of 13 different languages, but the question is, how many students who've pursued pure science in 11th and 12th really focus on language? I have been a science student, and if I am asked to suddenly look at comprehension passage, of course it will be scary for me too.
Well, let me first of all share with you this year, what happened in Delhi University. We had 3 colleges and the cutoff list was 100%. 100%. Now, you can't have more than 100%. So the 100% was the cutoff. Now, this was very ridiculous also, as academicians, we also find it very ridiculous. How much you can score, 100% is the limit. Now, therefore, there has to be some other way of judging. Now, our friend was talking about 50%. In the 50%, you said you very rarely is a chance, because you are not only assessing their abilities in maths, but also language, so different dimensions of intelligence is going to be tested. So some students are good in some dimensions, some students are good in other dimensions. So therefore, none of the student is going to, theoretically speaking, score 100%. So we will have a cutoff. Now we'll have a reasonable cutoff now to take students into our courses.
Okay. Advocate Shikha Sharma, are you convinced with what Professor Joshi has told us on the benefits of this system? Because we all know, the cutoff for certain courses has actually touched 100% as well. And that has not been very good for many students.
Yes, of course. Actually, my concern is that we are judging the student on the basis of the rote learning. Why we are giving them the prescribed syllabus? Why we are not talking about the innovation? So the whole system of the testing the student is totally unfair as per my views as concerned. As we have already discussed, it is going to create more suicidal tendency because of failure. In case the student has scored well in maybe CBSE, and if he could not score well in the competitive examination or CUET, then it is going to be, students are going to be in a depression. So we have seen that many students are committing suicide in this case. I think this is going to create a huge burden on the student and going to create a pressure Rather than the academicians should focus on first the school education before going into the level of undergraduate courses, because unless there will be a uniformity of education, one nation, one curriculum in whole nation, then only this kind of program would be going to be successful.
Okay. I want to give the last word now to two students on the show here, Anoushka as well as Nemal. Nemal, to you first, since you said that this is going to be additional burden for students. Are you in some way convinced after the details were given by Professor Joshi about how it is going to help the students, especially at a time when cutoffs have touched 100% for many courses in DU?
No, I am not convinced, and I really want to ask, sir, that with due respect, I want to ask, sir, can you please, sir, tell me 3 points which must convince us? Because, sir, why is CUET having the syllabus which is completely different from our class 12 syllabus?
Should I answer the question?
Professor Joshi, will you like to address this?
Actually, I would like to address, first of all, from Shikha Sharma ji has raised a very important questions about rote learning. I think national education policy, if you go deeper into it, the entire curriculum is going to be overhauled, and the rote learning is the thing that we are going to, I think, attack, and we are going to make education more, I would say, useful for the students and also for the society. Now, our dear student, you have some apprehensions about this combined entrance, common entrance test. I must tell you that anything that is new would be scary. But I am telling you, in the long run, this is going to lead to less of the depression, less of the stress on the students, and getting admission into the college of their choice will become more easier for students than it is now, because you cannot get more than 100%. So that is where we had reached in Delhi University, and I think it is a very right time that we are making our entrance, our admission system more rational, more objective, and more student friendly.
But sir, you said that the 12th marks will be considered too. After CUET, the 12th marks will be considered too.
Yes, 12th mark will also be considered.
Is going to be much lesser.
So, sir, the stress...
Actually, it is not mandatory on the universities. The universities will have to devise their own, formula for what percentage of CUET. CUET will give you a score for the students. It is up to the universities to adopt what percentage of CUET they would like to take in their university. So that kind of freedom, I think, is going to be with the central universities.
Sir, obviously,
Anoushka Khemani, I want to give you the last word now. What will you like to tell your friend Nemal Rizvi on the points that she has raised here?
I think Nemal has a doubt about both board exams will be considered and the CUET exams will be considered. As for CUET, I think, as sir mentioned before, it will talk about more the holistic development of the student, because it's also involving verbal ability, quantitative ability, and logical reasoning, etc. Instead of just focusing on the rote learning, which mostly comes under the board examinations. And for the board exams, I think it's mostly up to the universities what weightage they want to keep for the board exams. And even if we don't consider board exams, we used to give term 1 and term 2 examinations even in 8th grade, 9th grade. So even if you take board exams as your term exams and you give them well, you can get a decent score which will be acceptable by all the universities. So I don't think that will pose as a problem.
All right. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening. Like I said, it is going to be very, very important for the students of class 12th and their parents. And I think some clarity has clearly come on how this entrance test will be and how is it going to help the students as well as parents. Of course, there are some concerns that have been raised as well. We are hoping that UGC will address those concerns as well in due course of time.